The North Carolina Marine Fisheries Commission met, and some things came out of that meeting that you definitely need to hear about, that I definitely want to be out there in the public. We're going to talk about this briefly, and then we're going to go on to one of Mr. Frank White, legendary Frank White, one of his fishing show episodes from back in the day that I think everybody should see to really have some good context for when people say there's more now than ever. I want you to keep in mind when you watch that stuff, this is not that long ago. We're talking about 40 years. All right, so the Marine Fisheries Commission meetings, the highlights here, the flounder split parity, right? So everybody has one big pool of flounder that they can take from, and historically, commercial has gotten more of that pool. They have actually voted to expedite the split to 50-50, and this may actually provide the recreational sector with a small season. However, it was noted that there may be periods in the future where there is no season again, even with the 50-50 split, mostly due to the dead discard issue. Little side note, if you haven't seen this video, I'll put it rather somewhere. Hopefully I remember. If I don't, you can go to my channel and look up the real trawl numbers, and you'll find out that trawls actually throw back in dead discards more by weight, or basically effectively the same by weight as the total allocation for the recreational sector. This is the fish we're allowed to keep and our dead discards, right? So obviously there are dirty fisheries out there. Hook and line has its own issues, but they're not counting the trawl discards against the overall commercial take. And now, mind you, most of the commercial industry, your gill netters, your giggers, your pound netters, don't deserve to have this bycatch counted against them, right? Unless they're also trawling, they're not really doing the damage. It's not really how it works though, so it's by sector. The interesting thing is that the total allocation by weight is being thrown back by the trawls, and yet by numbers of fish, because they're little bitty tiny fish, it is many, many times the overall impact of the recreational sector for dead discards and just pure removals, and they do not count it at all. Folks, this is real. I'm not making this up. You need to know about that. You need to talk to somebody about that. Call your legislator. Ask them, why is this the case? We do have data there, and I can show that to you in that video if I remember to link it there. If I didn't, go to the main channel and check it out. Let's move on to spotted sea trout or speckled trout. Obviously, a lot of you probably know that it's going to go down to 3 fish for the recreational sector, and the recreational sector is also going to have a 14 to 20 inch slot. Now, there is an exception to this: 1 fish per day of your 3. So if you have 2 that are in that 14 to 20 slot, 1 fish per day may be over 26 inches. So if you want to get your citation, you're still good for that. If you want to break the state record, you are still good for that. The big change that came through was for the commercial sector. So back in the original meetings, I thought it was really strange that Sammy Corbett, the chairman of the Marine Fisheries Commission, also a commercial fisher, who does net speckled trout, he was very dead set on doing the same thing for both sectors. And part of that meant putting a slot on speckled trout. I have some commercial friends who have told me how absolutely insane this would be for them. And while it might sound good to a lot of us, the ultimate result is that a lot of fish would die and then just be thrown back to rot, which really doesn't make any sense. And there were other options that we had in order to manage commercial in a different way. For instance, they did weekend closures for commercial. So originally, commercial was going to have their weekend closures through a certain period of the year to align with striped mullet. That's kind of a different topic, but basically they line those up because striped mullet and speckled trout get caught on same trips in the same areas a lot. So you line up the closures so that you're not fishing for one and still just killing the other when you can't sell it and it's dying again for no reason. They have the weekend closures for commercial. They took away the slot at this last meeting, which does make very good sense. But it was mentioned by Mr. Rader. He's a Marine Fisheries Commissioner who sits in the science seat. It was mentioned by him that he actually sat on, or he was part of a study that did research into effort shift, right? So basically doing stuff like weekend closures, certain day of the week closures, anything that would allow people to modify their behavior and make up for what should be a reduction. And he noted that you may see only 50% of the actual reduction. So while on paper it looks like rec is taking a 27% reduction and comm is also taking a 27 or 28% reduction, it's more than likely that comm is going to be taking about half that. And there are still several of us that are concerned that now I have put more big fish back into the water, more big fish are present in the water, and therefore comm will take more of those big fish. And it feels a lot like flounder all over again, because on the big picture, and this is where it concerns me, right? The allocation stuff, it definitely doesn't feel fair. But if I have to choose between me getting more fish or some of the commercial guys I know getting more fish, and I'm not saying this for anyone else in the state, but just for me, I don't really care if they get a little bit more. What I care about is we don't go down the same road as flounder. And if you look back at flounder, we have copied almost precisely what we did with flounder. So the Department of Marine Fisheries, our biologists, the experts, I know a lot of you don't like that, but it is their job literally to count fish. It is their job to come up with these estimates. And when we did not follow them in the past for flounder, things got worse and worse and worse as we went forward. And that's what I'm looking at. I do not want the situation with trout to become the same thing that happened with flounder. The DMF recommended a 40% reduction, and we achieved about a 27% reduction. And I know cold kill, all sorts of other things come into play there. It's a whole big topic, but just making sure this is on record, making sure the public knows what happened there. They ended up taking a 27. The DMF said take 40. We'll figure out down the road if it bites us or not. Obviously, most of us didn't really want to take a bigger reduction. Most of us don't really feel like it was necessary. I myself, I'm uncertain, to be perfectly honest. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but I know in the past that we often did not listen. I say we, the Marine Fisheries Commission often did not listen, and it did not work out well for us. All right, and for the commercial sector individually, they were coming after all sorts of things in the Marine Fisheries Commission meeting. Really, there's so much detail involved there that if you want to know exactly how it impacts the commercial sector, you're far better off going and watching it all. But oysters, blue crabs, trout, flounder, they are taking massive hits sort of across the spectrum. And it's difficult, right? It's difficult. I know there's a lot of split, a lot of hard feelings between both of the sectors, but it's definitely hitting a lot of the commercial folks out there very, very hard and really very sort of all at once. So some of these decisions have not been completely finalized yet. We're going to see exactly how some of those things shake out. But if you're a commercial fisherman, I would definitely recommend you watch all the way through every one of the meetings and reach out to the commissioners. You have commercial commissioners there that are meant to be your representatives, and maybe you change their mind. It's probably unlikely. Or maybe you just come to understand why they're doing the things that they do. It may be something that you could do to help to try to make it not so bad in the future. All right, so moving on to the main meat and potatoes of today's video, Mr. Frank White, the legendary Frank White. We're going on a trip to Manio to catch some bluefish. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we will see you soon.
Out that they were having the bluefish runs along the coast, and a couple of friends of mine from Greenville, Joe Cullifer and his son Jerry Cullifer, and I drove down to Manio. Joe's got a trailer down there. We drove down the night before and spent the night. And when we got down to the beach, we could see birds offshore. That's Joe Cullifer there in the blue cap. Jerry's the guy in the yellow shirt there, his son. And Joe loves this, and I love it too. We love to go down there and fish in the surf, but particularly when the blues are blitzing. And they had had a blitz the day before, and conditions just look good. Now, if you want to buy some houses cheap, you can go down to South Nags Head at high tides. The front end of this house is underwater. Don't feel too sorry for this guy for having built this house in this place. It used to be 150 yards or more from the beach, but the beach is eating up, the ocean is eating up the beach, and they're having to move the houses back and back again, and they keep moving them back. He doesn't pay for this. He's got federal insurance. You and I pay for this. We're footing the bill for this. Federal insurance covers it, and the taxpayer picks up the tab. So don't feel sorry for the guy. If his house falls in the water, you and I are going to pay for it for him. I shot this just as sort of a little bit of sort of a primer, a lesson. You see that gap there between those two sandbars? It's slick on either side. That's what we call a slough. Now, when the tide comes in, and particularly at night when the weather's warm and clear, the fish will come over the bar where this guy is standing into that ditch, that trough that's right there where your feet are, right in front of the beach. And the water will come over that bar, and then it'll turn and go back out through that trough. It's a drain, a kind of a ditch there between the sandbars. And the fish will congregate there because all of the minnows and all the little crabs and everything else that get washed over in the rising tide are caught in the current, and they're channeled back out through that little ditch, through that little funnel that you're looking at right there. Now, it's not very good right now because it's dead low tide and because it's bright and the fish are not in there that close. But we can see the birds offshore, and all of a sudden you can tell almost everybody hangs up. Those fish start to move in to the surf, and when they do, people start throwing plugs. Now, this is artificial bait fishing. The guys will sit there with a piece of cut bait out on the bottom and wait, but when the blues move in under the birds, everybody reels his bait in and gets it out of the water and starts throwing either a big topwater plug or a spoon, because those fish come right in. I've had them swim between my feet when I was standing knee-deep in water. And I wouldn't stand out there bare-legged. I'm always out there in waders or something like that. I am convinced that if you fell off a boat accidentally into a big school of these things, you might get very severely bitten. And if you ever got once, they probably, if blood got in the water, they probably would eat you alive like a bunch of piranhas. These fish are all running 12, 14, 15, 16 pounds. This little gentleman you're going to see coming out here is fat. Now, in the spring of the year, they do the same thing, but you can tell the difference. They're thin. They've been starving all winter. But now the bait is moving down the coast and out of our inlets in the fall, and these things are just as round as footballs and just as firm and mean. Now, I want to take this lad's picture, and that one broke off. He lost his lure. They've got bad teeth, and they'll bite your lure off, even though you've got leaders on there. And you need leaders. You need either a heavy monofilament leader or a cable kind of leader, a braided cable or wire leader, because they've got teeth that are bad news. And everybody's scrambling around out there. You talk about what they call a blitz. And this guy, I thought he had a 30-pound blue. It turned out he had snagged him in the head, right behind the head there, right in the top of his back. And, of course, that gives a fish a lot more leverage. This is what they were after. And these little fish, these are little pilchards. They're kind of like little sardines, about 6 or 8 inches long. And they ran out on that beach to get away from those bluefish. All they could see over their shoulder was a big mouthful of teeth coming at them like a freight train. And they just left the water and just got out there with us. They said, hey, we'll get out here and watch. You know, we don't want to be in there. But it's really something to see these fish when they come in the water like this, and they'll come right up between your feet and run everything on the shore. And it doesn't make any difference what's in the water. A friend of mine, Bobby Tolson, who lives down at Manio and has a car dealership down there, Bobby Tolson picked a 9.5-pound gray trout up on the beach that had been run out by bluefish last year. And quite often people will hit a school of speckled trout or gray trout or whiting or anything else that's been run out on the beach, and they'll just go along and pick them up and put them in the ice chest. You don't even need a rod and reel when this is going on. And, of course, I could have picked up all the sardines I wanted, but we were more preoccupied, as was everybody else. Everybody gets frenzied here. The fish are in a frenzy. The fishermen are in a frenzy. Everybody is whooping and hollering and casting and getting lines tangled up and cussing and just having the time of their life. I mean, it is just great. And meantime, the beach is flopping with little fish that have run out there to try to get away. Little pilchards, but it could be anything. Last one of these I saw was menhaden. The bluefish are equal opportunity eaters. They'll eat anything that's in the water, and they'll run it right out on the beach, and they don't care. If it's a trout as big as they are, they'll still run it out. A 10-pound trout will get out of the way of a 10-pound bluefish. Just like a 200-pound man will get out of the way of a 200-pound bear or tiger. It's the same kind of thing. These are mean, mean fish. And the story about them is that they will just feed and feed and feed until they are just chock full, and they'll throw up what's in their stomach and then just start feeding again. They don't ever get enough as long as there's food there. They just keep eating. They go into a frenzy of feeding. And that's what they were doing here. And it's quite a sight. It's one of nature's sideshows, I guess you'd call it. It's not, you know, an earth-shaking event. It's not like a volcanic eruption or an earthquake or anything like that. But still, if you've never seen it, you will just sit there and shake your head in awe. And then the second thing you'll do is you'll run grab a rotten reel that's got a spoon on it or a topwater plug or something like that and try to catch you one. They're tremendous fighting fish. About 2 of them, and I've had enough. It takes about 15 or 20 minutes, depending on how big he is, if you're good. And if you're not good and know what you're doing, it may take you an hour to get one of the things in. And after you've caught about 2 or 3 of those things, I have an old saying is, a few big bluefish go a long, long way. But I love to catch 1 or 2 of them, and I love to take that meat out there and poach it and make fish cakes or make salad out of it. In that respect, they're good. Otherwise, I don't care that much for big, oily bluefish. I'll be back here in a minute with more about bluefish in the surf after these very important messages.